is the highest quality that we have done. So this is going to, Beehive Residency Road is going to set new standards. This is, as many have experienced, Beehive is not just about just a workspace, it is an entire experience end to end, right? From morning to evening, how your whole life happens. To an extent, so some of the things we are doing, just as an intro I would say, is that one is that I think first in class is we are putting Murphy beds here. People, this already, as you know, it's 24/7. People can actually also sleep in Beehive Residency Road if you have those cabins. We are also putting up showers with towel service, soap service, and everything. So people can take showers as well here. This very place where I'm standing, this is event slash multi-purpose area where from starting this Monday, we're also going to start workout sessions. Maria is going to run it. So daily there is a workout session happening. You can actually technically sit here, do the workout, take a shower. There's a cafe that is coming up. You can have your food there as well. And obviously, as coffee, basic coffee, water is and RO water is unlimited free all the time. But beyond that, we are taking it to the next level by building a very, very high-end cafe as well. And of course, there is games area, there are tournaments we conduct. We are also going to get a pool table here, the foosball. So this is going to be an entire different experience, and as you already know, it's a great location. So with best possible view in Bangalore. So thanks for coming down here. I think one of the things is today's topic is essentially, this is really meant for entrepreneurs who are either, they are starting up in India, they're looking to start startup here, or you're already doing startups. Because and also this comes by my own experience. Quite a lot of it. I do have some amount of experience. Of course, there's always a long way to go. The experience is that I had done a company long time back when I was in 8th semester. I do count from there. It didn't fully succeed as such. I had to shut it down. Beyond that, I have been in US for a very long time, US for about 8 years. So I sort of have some understanding of how entrepreneurship and startups work in the US. I came back and Beehive is about 2.5 years old now. So there are a lot of things I've learned from, and I can see what are the things that are working for me, right? And what are the things that I've learned. So I feel that it's important to give back, and quite often schedule is very busy, and I thought many people reach out to me for tips and advice, etc. I think this is the right way where we would I would give a talk and list down some of the most important advice I would like to give from my own learning, which hopefully is something that will make a difference to other people who are doing entrepreneurship. So I've noted down like 10 most important points. There's no specific order for that. I think one of the things is that while doing entrepreneurship, it was an inspiration for me to get. You need certain inspiration. I always say that you follow great leaders. It's very important to follow great leaders. I have personally, I can tell who are my icons. I followed them very strongly because quite often you'll go through difficult scenarios, and also startup is never like, obviously there is glamour associated, but startup is never, once you get into it, you realize, glamour will go away in no time. It is hard. So that's why it's important to look at lives of other people and get inspired and understand, and that will also give an understanding of how things can pan out for you. The three most influential people for me personally, one is Paul Graham. Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator. He also does a lot of speaking. There are a lot of essays. There is paulgraham.com, which has most of his essays available. Personally, it has inspired me a lot. There are various lessons I've learned from it. I think I read most of his articles when I was working for Bloomberg in New York City, right, when I had a corporate job. I think some of the things which inspired me, I think he always did talk about the opportunity that exists out there, right, in terms of amount of money you can make or amount of impact you can make in a startup out there today is so incredibly high compared to a corporate job. I think that is something which I sort of learned from him, and coming from somebody who's like a Y Combinator founder who is very, very strong. So it is always a tough decision to leave a company like Bloomberg or even leave US and come to India, right, after living there for such a long time. But I think Paul Graham has inspired me to do it. Some of the other people is, for me, other person who has influenced a lot is Steve Blank. Steve Blank is a professor in Berkeley University today, and he has done, I think, more than 7 or 8 startups he has done himself personally over a period of time in Silicon Valley. So some of the things he says is very real because he has really done so many startups. and many of them have failed. So there are a lot of lessons that he has learned from the startups, and he does talk about it. And also, I think Steve Blank gives he is in fact considered as the founder of the lean startup movement. And also, he always talks about a philosophy called customer development. He always says it's not really product development, it is customer development. You need to develop something for your customers, right? So I think some of the things, his famous book is Lean, 4 Steps to Epiphany. I understood from him that, there are, obviously failure is possible, but I think from the methodology, what he really inspired me was the fact that, I can, there is a process to it. I can minimize it, I can learn, and if I keep trying, I can always succeed. That's something I really learned from it. And of course, I think I think something which is a big wall in Intranagar which has his photo, and I think quite often we go by his picture in many places. That's Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, of course, there is glamour to it, but I think Steve Jobs has always been very inspirational. I always see him as a great leader. You look at his life, it has never been easy, right? He started Apple, he became one of the richest individuals by the time he was 25. At some stage, he in fact got fired. He went through so much lows in life, and he again made a comeback. He started 2 more companies. They again came back. Again, the way he came back to Apple, I think his story of leadership is really amazing. I don't think anybody else would have done what he has done, right? Even today, you can see the world in Apple. They may be running the company right now. Tim Cook is probably a great manager. They're trying to follow what Steve Jobs said in. But the way Steve Jobs did things, the way an individual can make an impact, right? There are so many stories for that matter, right? For example, phones never used to have a glass screen, and people thought it's impossible. And he insisted that it has to be glass, right? That story itself sort of tells now every phone has glass, right? So the amount of impact one individual can make is very, very inspirational. And in a company which is today worth $800 billion, one person made such an impact. I always take it as an inspiration. I know that I think he was a kind of a personality who is not necessarily liked by everybody, but I think as a leader he has delivered a lot. And I think he always talks about the impact it will make on the humanity, right? Make a dent in the universe. I think that's what he would say. So I think that has been very inspirational. And for me personally, that is also a reason why I did startup, is that at the end of the day, making an impact was more important for me than the personal safety. You can always have a corporate job and making a lot of money, but I was thinking, am I really making such a big dent there, right? Which was not true. So he has inspired. So always follow great leaders. Other thing is, I think, obviously, I think I am also giving some suggestions, but when people suggest, I also see that, quite often that people are going and asking for advice from random people, right? Okay, you may get random advisors, there are different set of investors, a lot of meetings, people are asking, I need some advice. I always say, what, the best advices out there are already there in some of the best books written in Silicon Valley. So I say that, no matter what random advice you take, there are certain books which I personally follow like Bible. I would say at least 3 of the books I would always say, I follow it like really, really like Bible. One is 4 Steps to Epiphany. This is written by Steve Blank. In fact, I'll tell you something about this book, right? Steve Blank did like 7 or 8 startups over a period of 30 years in Silicon Valley. Many of them failed. One interesting thing he did was he was always taking notes. As an entrepreneur, throughout 30 years he made those notes. And then he became a professor in Berkeley, and he started a course around startups and entrepreneurship, and all those notes he made into a textbook. And very interestingly, one of his students convinced him that this actually can become a book. It was never written to be a book to be published. That's why it's actually a very hard book to read. But now it's an iconic book, 4 Steps to Epiphany. In fact, I think talks a lot about how to do a startup, where it failed, where it succeeded. I think the way he has written, a flow chart, the way he gives suggestions, when to take an advisor, how much to give an advisor. Whatever questions you come and ask me, trust me, everything is answered already in that book. Right? I think that's a great book, and I think I would, it's there in our company library as well. I will always say it's a must read for everybody. I think other book is Lean Startup. Interestingly, Eric Ries, who wrote Lean Startup book, was a student of the first batch of what Steve Blank was teaching. He is Steve Blank's student. So Lean Startup, in fact, is a lot more affordable book. It's a lot more easy to read. I think what he really did was, Eric Ries combined Toyota's principles and customer development methodology of Steve Blank, and he created something called Lean Startup. And he's in fact of my, almost like my age. He is an evangelist. He also has done startup. He has used that whole principles. I think one of the interesting thing about that book is that book he always takes an example of his own company. which he actually used all these principles and built successfully, right? How you actually keep finding the right thing, right? It's building a company is always a series of iteration. It will never succeed first time. You have to keep doing experiments, keep doing something. It may fail. You are always trying to find that customer fit. So, in fact, if you follow it like Bible, trust me, in almost any field, for a period of time, you keep pursuing it, you can actually succeed and build your company. One more book again this is from Paul Graham. The book is called Hackers and Painters. I read this book when I was in Google. I was very, very inspired. I think a lot of these articles are also available on paulgraham.com for free. I like to read it as a book sometimes. I think a lot of the major articles have been put into that book, Hackers and Painters. I would say these 3 books, if you read, trust me, you don't need any more advice about startups. I would always, these are must reads. Some of the other things, one more is like point number 3, which I would like to tell is, since it is for India, I would say that sometimes maybe you need a little more advice. India is slightly different from Silicon Valley. Having faith and conviction is extremely important if you are doing a startup. One of the things is, one thing I'll tell you, by culture, the way it comes, right? I will tell you, be it Beehive or the previous company called Mysore Infocom that I started like when I was in 8th semester. Trust me, like 9 out of 10 will always say it is going to fail. Right? Don't do entrepreneurship, it is going to fail, just take a job, right? And you know what, and my company failed, then those people comment, I told you it's going to fail, right? As if they sort of predicted it, right? And it will feel like, oh, they actually could predict, they're actually smart people. But trust me, that's not true, right? Don't be pessimistic. At the end of the day, if I look back today, whatever I did then has also helped me today. And faith, one is obviously, right, look and understand, don't be in a glamour. It's not an easy. I never say, if somebody asks me to do a startup, I'll say no. It is very, very difficult, right? Despite me telling no 3 times, 4 times, he still wants to do, that means he's a real entrepreneur, right? It is not going to be an easy journey. You be prepared for it. And once you come, you need to have that faith and conviction. I will tell you, 9 out of 10 people will tell you are stupid. So don't listen to it. Have the conviction of what you are doing. Have a self-belief. You are working on a product. Because if you yourself don't believe in it, it is never going to work, right? And also believe in a process, right? At the end of the day, he sort of talks about the fact that you keep trying. Maybe the product may not work. Sometimes people come up with ideas which look stupid to me. But you know what, sometimes, they actually keep working on it and become successful, because even I or anybody may not necessarily understand the whole context, right? So if you have an idea, only you are the one who can understand the context, and obviously be data driven, right? Instead of taking opinions, keep doing experiments of whatever idea you have, and follow the principles. Eventually you'll go to the right place. And staying on is very important. Don't leave too early. I think I'll talk about that more later. And one of the other things is, I think many times I see, I can't always directly tell it on the face of the people, that people are trying to do startup part-time, right? I always say that if you are really, really serious, part-time does not work. Because, part-time, if you're doing part-time, you're probably, the risk-taking appetite is not very high, right? Startup is about taking risk. And quite often people say in a corporate job, they're making their money, then they're trying to do something on the side. Trust me, the same thing if you're doing full-time, the probability of success is way, way higher. Because when you jump in full, you don't have a backup, that's when you give it your full shot. So I think, personally, I don't know how many would really succeed. That's the way it has worked for me, because I personally need a lot of mind share, and you need to be fully committed, and you should not be thinking too much about the backup, right? Whenever there is a backup, you can't go too far, because in startup, maybe sometimes it's like by luck it will fly, but quite often you come to a stage where it feels like I have to go back. Trust me, I've also come to a stage, even within we have come to a stage where I felt like, where have I come? Why did I leave US? Why did I leave my job? In fact, to an extent where once I even called back my manager, it's a long time back, things were very tough in the first year. I was thinking maybe I should just go back to US, right? But luckily for me, today look at it, Bloomberg has a rule that they never recruit somebody who was left again, right? So my manager could never recruit me back. And US obviously left my green card and so many processes. Again, to go back to US was so much harder. I was like, let me try more, right? So at the end of the day, I think, and the fact was it was actually good for me, because the more you try, the more you learn. And it is always going to be hard, and I think many people in my stage, the most difficult scenarios I've gone through, I feel that many would have probably left. The fact that you stay on and on and on, eventually things start working, right? You need to be prepared, you need to go that extra mile, right? I think that is very, very important. And I think this is another important thing I sort of personally see in India happening quite often is, I think planning your cash flow is extremely important. Because when you are taking a startup jump, you need to know that things are not going to be easy, right? And you need to manage, right? I can go by my personal example, is that I made sure that I had some enough cash saved up in US $8. I actually sold off my property. I had a property, I'm from Mysore, I bought a house in Mysore, I sold it off, I made some money out of it. I made sure there is no EMI, right? At the end of the day, I see a lot of people, they have huge EMI, then they come to do startup, then they, what will happen is your stress will start building too much, right? You really need to decide whether you want a house or whether you want to do the entrepreneurship, right? See, this is the time, right? Personally, I would say that houses, you can buy after 10 years also. Want to do entrepreneurship, this is the right day, this is the right time, you do it now, don't keep liabilities. Houses, trust me, never going to appreciate to an extent where you can never buy, right? So I think personally, having that flow very well planned is very important. Let's say, you have kids, you should have probably planned enough money, either your wife is working or husband is working, or you have something saved for their education. Otherwise, what will happen is that, trust me, as I said, you need to go a little further, right? After 6 months you start feeling the pinch, you're like, hey, I'm not able to do this. Trust me, no matter how much you know before it pinches, right? I used to drive a BMW, from BMW I came to a much cheaper car, it starts feeling the pinch, right? And once it feels like, what, I'm living a shitty life, right? So trust me, that's why you need to have enough backup. And I can imagine on top of it, I had EMIs, the level of stress can be incredible. Right? I can tell you that, despite the fact that I had done so much planning, I had cash, I had sold off my property, there was enough money. But still, when things are not going well, I used to forget all that savings I had. I used to think I'm bankrupt. It always feels like I'm almost going bankrupt. I think, I can't pay my rent, and I think that's the way I used to feel. And now I think back, even though it was not true, right? Human mind works like that. When things are not looking good, you will only look at the negatives, right? And if that was happening to me, who had done enough backup, etc., I can imagine, somebody who has huge EMI to pay, I think they would have probably just left and run away very, very quickly. So I think that's my personal tip. Then point number 6 is another really important thing I think I always see is that people don't realize that always look at opportunity cost. I think opportunity cost is one of the least understood thing in the world. Example I would say is that I'll go again by my personal example. When I started Beehive, one of the things is at the end of the day, one is obviously I've already quit the job, so that's an opportunity cost, right? I quit the job, I used to probably make a huge dollar salary, etc. On top of it, now I had some money saved. I'm like, in fact, I invested 50 lakhs of my money. It was not my father's money or anything, it was my own earned money. Right? At the end of the day, my logic is like this. Compared to me, like many people, what they do, they quit their job possibly, but they don't put their money. They're like, maybe they'll put 5 lakhs and they'll struggle for 3 years, right? So my point was like this, instead of putting 5 lakhs and struggling for 3 years and making things work, why not put that 50 lakh also and try your best in 1 year? If things don't work in 1 year, in the remaining 2 years I can probably earn back that 50 lakhs, right? So I think that is something people don't understand, because when you are really doing something, you need to give it your best shot. And you need money, right? Most of the things, maybe there are a few things that doesn't need money, but most startups I can see, you need to recruit people, you need to do certain things, you need to do brand building, you need money. And trust me, if you are trying to do something without money, you are essentially, you are setting up yourself, your probability of failure is very, very high, right? So that's why look at the opportunity, not okay to put the money. I've seen many people who quit job, they're getting 50 lakhs salary, they quit, and I ask them how much you put money, and they say 5 lakhs. Was like, you're losing 50 lakhs, you may as well put some more money, right? So I think many people don't get it. It's really important to understand that. And I think one more point, when this I tell a lot of people, when they come and ask me for, I'm also an angel investor, have invested not too many companies. Some people come to me asking me for angel investment. One of the things I always tell, angel investment, trust me, people are not investing in your idea or a product. Angel investor invests in you, right? And at the end of the day, what I can tell is that I raised a lot of angel investment also. Trust me, they were investing in Shesh, not in Beehive at that stage, right? At the end of the day, even if I'm doing a travel startup, let's say whatever startup I was doing, the reason they are doing it because they knew me for certain years. Some of them knew me as a college mate in that college. Some of them have seen me in the US, doing different things, right? So at the end of the day, angel investors go for safety, and they feel like Shesh is a capable person. Whatever is going to keep my money safe and is going to deliver. So quite often, right, when people are shooting down their idea, if people are not investing, that means you haven't built enough personal brand. right? You don't have enough people who are trusting you. It's not about your idea, right? And for that, I tell a lot of times, it's important that, for example, when I was 21-year-old, the only people who put money was my uncle and aunt, right? Because they knew me from childhood. I don't think any other friends would have put some money, right? When I did a Beehive, I knew so many people, a lot of my classmates had enough money, a lot of my colleagues had money. I raised, like, as I said, I put 50 lakhs, another 1 crore actually raised from friends and family. Also because I had put 50 lakhs, right? So that was also important. So I think what is important to understand is that you need to build enough reputation, enough of your own personal brand, and sometimes you have to put your own money also so that people believe in you, right? So always know that friends and family are actually investing in you. And also I think one other thing is that you should never give up on them, right? Quite often it will happen that I will say that in India it's even more common that when an institutional investor comes, they may undermine the rights of the angels, but trust me, angels put money in you, and it is your personal brand that's going to go bad, and you have to defend them like crazy because they believed in you. And I can also tell that when things are tough, if they really believe in you, they are the ones who are going to support you, right? And also India is a place where you probably, it's nice, especially if you're doing something which is real world connected. Connections are very important. You may, for example, we are in real estate, be it police commissioner, be it BBMP, there are so many things that need connection. And quite often there are angels who help me with so many permits or so many different things. So I think in many ways having a lot of angels can be helpful, and you have a lot of goodwill partners to help you, and they all become your partners. I think point number 8 is, one of the things I tell is, India is sort of a country where you need a lot more maturity, say, compared to, say, Silicon Valley. And I think maturity, again, for me, I again am going by my own experience, right? When I did a Mysore Infocom, in fact, Ravi was my co-founder, was also sort of my partner at that time. We both were like 21-year-olds at that time. So I think what we lacked was not not necessarily the capability, but the maturity, right? So I always say that maturity is important, especially when you're doing things in India. India is not Silicon Valley. You will always have people who are coming and trying to cheat you. There are so many things that's going to happen, right? And I can tell that, today I can no time tell that person doesn't have the money. He's trying to cheat me, right? Because I have the experience. When I was 21, I can give an example, right? I was doing this company and some deal came which I got really excited about. At that time they were saying some animation, some deal is there. You are going to make so much money, you do something, and I was trying to do some diversion. And at the end of the deal went to a stage where they were like, you have to keep some 50 lakhs deposit, this is bank guarantee. Trust me, I did not understand what is bank guarantee. I did not know whether maybe he was genuine. I couldn't even tell whether he's genuine or not, right? That really tells that I didn't have that maturity. Luckily, I decided, boss, I'm going to a territory I do not understand. Like today when somebody comes, I know my CA, I know my people, and I only talk to people who come through already existing reference, right? So I think the way I operate today is very different than how I would have been like 10 years back. That's why I always tell maturity is very, very important, and that's why one of the decisions I took when things failed, was I look back when when I was in 8th semester, things when it failed. What some of the key lessons for me was that one is that obviously I needed more experience, more connections. Then I had to earn some of my own money because my uncles and aunts. It was less money, but it belonged to my uncle and aunt. I had to pay back, right? So I decided that and also I need mentors. I need to see things. I never ever traveled abroad, so I took up a job. I was in US for 8 years. I traveled to Europe. There are so many things that I did. I think is all making difference today, right? When I was in real business, I've done like today. I know what is AWS, what is coding, what is this, what is CSA. There is so much more I know. I think the probability of success of like with me at my experience is much higher than when I was doing it at 21 years. So I always, obviously there are always outliers. There is Zuckerberg who did it much younger, but outliers are outliers, right? I'm not like saying no to an outlier, but on an average, I sort of take an age also. If I'm an angel investor, I'm putting money in a company. Personally, I prefer companies where founders are in their 30s at least. If they are first-time founders, I would say they should, first time you are probably in your 30s, right? I also go by Paul Graham. Paul Graham sort of gives this number. He says best age to be a first-time and startup founder is 24 to 36. Right? I think that applies for Silicon Valley. Personally, in India, I would say probably it's 30 to 40 to be a first-time entrepreneur. Because when you're too old, or too old in the sense when you're beyond that bracket, according to Paul Graham, what he says is that your energy is not so strong. When you're much younger, you're too enthusiastic, you don't lack the maturity, right? So there is a bracket which I sort of personally will tweak for India with my own experience. Some of the things is, I think point number 9 is, this is what I see from my experience. is, India is no Silicon Valley, right? And India in terms of the startup culture or a startup environment, India is a hybrid of Silicon Valley and traditional old school business. I'll tell you why, right? One example I always give is that, India as of today doesn't have a proper bankruptcy law, right? In Silicon Valley, you borrow money, you start a company, it fails. People say proudly, because my first startup failed, I started one more, right? You don't see so many people like that in India because somebody has failed, probably has run away because he has to pay money to somebody else, right? So, you saw Stacey thing, right? He went to jail, right? Even though technically, frankly, I don't think it was his mistake. Company had to pay, even he had a lot of receivables, right? He had 5 crores receivables, he had probably 2 crores payables. The payable guy is behind it. Now he has influence, right? So at the end of the day, one is important to understand. India, you have to have slightly, that's when I started respecting traditional entrepreneurs in India a lot more because they went through so much difficulty. India, it's important you build your connections, right set of people, you need to get permit. There are so many different things, and there are stages. In fact, stages have come where I have taken personal loan to pay salary. But these are things which are probably it is much lesser in Silicon Valley, right? But in traditional business, I know people used to take loan on their house, do certain things. In India, unfortunately, some of those things you probably still have to do, right? So you will always remember that, but opportunity is great. I think why I'm still doing it is because I think India as of today represents one of the best opportunities. Being in US, I could see that if I do something, I want to do it in India, right? Because I see that, India is probably where US was in 40s, it is going to grow, it is going to become wealthy, right? And I have seen the developed world and there is an opportunity. I have no doubt India is a great place, it was the right decision, but it is a tougher environment, it is, you sort of, go carefully, right? That's something I've learned. And I think this is point number 10. This is something I'm sort of repeating from one of my key investors as well, which personally I've also learned. I think one person would always repeat is one of my favorite quote is, in the 80s, Goldman Sachs used to have a CEO, his name is Gus Levy. One of his quote is that, he always says, don't be short-term greedy, be long-term greedy, right? I think if you really understand, right, he's not saying don't be greedy. He's saying always look at long term, right? Because quite often when you're trying to shortchange, right? I'll give you an example, right? Especially I'll tell you, right? The people who are very important to you, right? First is employees, right? Employees are important to you, your investors are important to you, your vendors are important to you, and your customers are important to you. You try to shortchange anywhere, right? Sometimes, I think one thing I'll say, right? Quite often people will be like, they don't pay their vendors well properly. They'll think, if I keep money longer, maybe I'll make some interest. Maybe it is true, right? Or employees, quite often I've seen companies which are not paying their employees on time. Quite often I see that most of these companies don't really go so far, right? Because it's an old mindset in India was not so reputation focused. I think like a Lala business style, right? People were always trying to hold on to money. But trust me, I think Silicon Valley has really changed that belief, and which works out also is that always look long term and always realize that if you're trying to build a company, right? Both the case, right? One is your own personal reputation, personal brand, right? As a founder. The other thing is if you are trying to build a brand of your company, right? At the end of the day, employees, you want your ex-employees also go and talk good about you, right? You want your vendors to actually come back and do a lot more to you and tell good about you to other vendors, your investors, be it your customers. That is what will help you in the long run. Some of the smartest people I've seen are the ones who actually don't actually think about short-term gains. Never sacrifice long-term objectives for short-term gains. Always figure out your reputation is important. And this is and there are many examples of companies which have done very, very well by doing it. And it may seem intuitive, but it is really important to always keep remembering that. Always remember you're doing something long run, and if you're following it over a period of time, things are going to fall in place. And if your current company didn't work, also obviously once you build that reputation, you go and start something. Your reputation is there. It's more likely the same employees will come, more likely the same investors will come, same customers will come. So always look for something in the long run. And if you're doing entrepreneurship, look for long run. Don't look for short-term gains. I think this covers 10 points, and this is, I think, 10 most important lessons that I have learned and which I would like to share. So thanks everyone. So maybe Vijeta, we could make it Q&A if there are questions.
If any questions, I have a mic. I can pass it on the mic. You're most welcome, and please ask questions. These kind of opportunities don't happen too often, where you can talk to someone like Shesh, who's actually not a very I should not say this, but you know, he's very busy man. Many times he's so immersed in what he does. He doesn't open up much, though he has so much of expertise and so much of knowledge, and he has been through his journey. So please, guys, feel free, ladies and gentlemen. Please ask him whatever you want to ask. Okay, it's an open house. There is no formality, and you know you're at PI, so it's all cool. So who would like to start?
You mentioned about investing your own money and raising it through friends and families. Just curious because there's many different kinds of advice out there. Some people say that maybe you can take a loan if it's a fixed project where you know where the starting or the beginning is. And equity is always expensive. So which of the two is a better way to go about it, and how should you decide that? On what are the parameters you should use to decide that?
See, I think it's a, obviously I think the question really is that, one side, there is a equity money that you raise by giving shares, right? The other side, you can actually take a loan, right, which is the debt. The question is debt better or is equity better, right? So there is no clear answer in that sense, right? A lot of times it depends on the stage of the company itself. So I think, especially the way India stands, I know that, debt is as good as putting your own money, right? At the end of the day, you have to pay it back, right? So now the question is, should I put my money is the question, right? Because you're taking debt on yourself, right? India is not so advanced where the bankruptcy law will say that you take debt on the company and then they don't come back after you, right? I think, again, it depends on the stage of the company, and, I know that there are people who have reputation, right? So let's say, I know people who have done successful startups who came out, people will let's say Rahul Yadav, for example, right? Housing, whether it's successful or not, he went and started another company. People are already there willing to give money, right? That company didn't go well, right? Trust me, he starts another company. There are enough people who will put money on equity, right? Because he has the reputation, right? At the end of the day, the question is, where is your reputation, right? Let's say I have ex-Google, ex-Facebook or something, I'm doing something, and I know that there are enough people chasing me to give money. I think equity is the way to go because equity is less stressful, right? At the end of the day, I'm sure very clear people are putting money on equity, that things can go to zero. And trust me, the ones who are putting money should know that, and they should also put money in different companies, because when they put money in 10 companies, they should know that 8 might fail, that 2 might actually give me the returns, right? So equity is definitely good, but in my own case, as I said, right, I don't think at that stage equity, I didn't want to spend so much time. I did have enough money, right? Instead of spending 6 months, my opportunity cost of leaving a big job and all that was so high that I was like, I don't want to waste my time. Let me put that money, start off, build some traction, build some metrics, and then I go for professional funding. Right? And that's sort of how I look at it.
Any other questions?
As you said, like there are 100 startups, and out of which only one reached to a success level. Half of them will be struggling, and most of them will just drop down. This is the story everybody knows about the entrepreneurs. So where you say that no, like give your full time, don't give your part time. When you actually have a fear of losing, like of security, of your society, everything, etc., etc., then what's your advice? How do you encourage those entrepreneurs who are actually enthusiastic, but the fear, security, society, they don't let them come up? What's your opinion?
That's a very interesting question, right? So the statistics does tell that, right? I would say that, definitely at least 90% fail, right? Whereas is it 95 which fail? I don't know the exact numbers. But some of the things I'll say is that few things one should always know is that, right, regardless of whether your startup failed or not, one thing that is true is that there is going to be huge learning for you, right? So that's one of the things I looked at it, right? Maybe it would fail, but I spent my 1 year, I learned something. Then I go back even to a corporate job or anywhere else, that learning nobody can take away from me, right? So that's one of the positive I looked at, right? Coming from my own angle. The other thing is also, I think, personally, I think if you follow, I was confident because I was following these sort of processes, etc. I felt that there are enough knowledge I had built where my probability is not as low as 5%. It is higher because I had the experience, I had learned certain processes, and also, in fact, one of my own first step was I was also scared to jump directly from Bloomberg. In fact, I didn't jump directly from Bloomberg. I became CTO for a startup, right? I was actually getting paid to sort of play a key role in a startup. I think for me that was a great step because it was somebody else's money. I was not going out to raise money or whatever money had already been raised. I am a CTO and I am actually in a key position. And I sort of did it for a year and then I could see right? So I sort of step by step, probability wise, I would always say that if you're not so prepared right now, maybe go to a startup which is at a relatively early stage where you can have an impactful work and you build your connection, etc. And also make sure that when you are full time into it, your probability is not 5%. You learned enough where you feel that you actually are at least 30-40% enough probability of success. And then even in 30-40%, if first fail, you probably second or third, somewhere you will make it.
Sir, I really like your 2 lines, which I actually noted down. The first one, you said, don't keep backup. But if there is backup, you cannot move forward too far. I really liked it and I'll always follow it. The other one, don't keep liabilities if you want to be an entrepreneur. Thanks for the speech, sir.
Okay, thanks.
My name is Abdul Hassan. What made you choose real estate at that point of time? I mean, before starting something, people will have 3-4 ideas. Okay, this might work. And to boil down to that point, like, okay, I'll take real estate and I'll solve and I'll build this company. So what made you to do that?
Again, that's a very interesting question. I think real estate, there are many reasons how real estate happened. Real estate is one thing from childhood I've always been interested in for whatever reasons. My grandfather, came from a farming background. He came from a village and he became a doctor. But obviously, when you grow up in a village as a farming background, land is everything, right? So he always had a craze for land. He used to buy plots in Mysore, So when I was a child also, I knew, okay, buy corner plot, do auction, all these things happen. So I thought we should learn from him, right? So I knew that people can make money in buying and selling sites. That's something I always knew. And then one of the other things also I would say which sort of guided me here is that the money that I made, right? I bought a property when I was very young, so I was very clear that I knew that real estate can make money. So I got my first job in 2003. By 2005, actually I bought my first property, and in 7 years I sold it for almost like 4 times as much, right? So I made my money through real estate also. So real estate, I know that macro factor is always in favor because India is growing, population is growing, and people are moving from rural area to urban area. So the macro factor is very, very in favor of making right kind of real estate. There are bad investments as well, right? Beyond that, I would say that it was not a fact that I sat and said, hey, should I do a fintech, should I do a real estate, should I, sometimes people are evaluating multiple things. I know it depends on the personality. I am not somebody I am very instinctive, for that matter, I'll tell you, right? The way BHIVE started was also, I had come back to India. I was a CTO for a startup. I had set up development center here. I was running into issues of infrastructure. And this was like, September 2014 is when I thought, hey, maybe I could do something to solve this, right? September 2014 and September last week is when I met the CA to sort of register the company. I'll tell you the flow of it. By October 15th, I had already shortlisted a property. By October 20th, first employee had already been recruited. By November 1st, we had a website, it was up and running with furniture and everything, right? The speed at which I never thought, it was very, very instinctive. I felt there is something here, I will go and give it a shot and I'll try, right? And I knew that my opportunity got already left US. I came and I was a CTO for a company and that company was not taking off, right? And so I had to do something else. And I didn't frankly, I never evaluated. I just went with the flow. And it just, it just happened.
What's your take on technology startups in Bangalore right now? Because one big difficulty I face as a technology guy is, I have the habit of playing around with hardware probably, but I'm a very dumb businessman. So I have an idea, I know it's something that's needed in the market, but I have no clue how to go about putting it out in the market and how to take the idea forward. So what's the right direction for the technology startups? And upon that, the engineering cost and the engineering time adds up a lot compared to other startups. For example, you can start an e-bus just with a website probably as a minimum viable product. But when I'm trying to build a real technology product, a physical product, the engineering cost and time is much more compared to the others. So what should be the right direction for technology startups?
It's a very good question. I think the question is that, for a technology startup, you come from a technology background, has an experience, haven't really done a lot of business side work, right? So that's not your area of expertise. And I think the other question which is built into this is that I think the amount of time it takes to hit the market is probably longer and the amount of investment that's required is much more, right? So, again, it is not a perfect answer for every kind of company. I think I've been a CTO, in fact, I am an engineer. In fact, I had the same thing. I never had too much of a business side exposure from a work perspective, right? So one is, they always talk about, US, they use this word a lot in Silicon Valley. Are you a hacker or are you a hustler? Whenever I go to like some event, they ask, right? So one is, it's important to have a hustler. If you're not the hustler, you need to have a hustler with you, right? Because if you look at what Steve Blank also says, right? He says it is not about product development, it is about customer development, right? At the end of the day, customer and business comes first beyond technology. Right, what is the use case that Uber is solving, right? It's a taxi, I can get the taxi immediately, right? Whatever technology it does is secondary for me, right? Even without technology, whatever would have background, my customer problem is solved. So it's important to understand psychology, the customer, what is the story, and I think India is unfortunately filled more with technology people, fortunately or unfortunately. In fact, US is opposite, they are always looking for tech co-founder, and India is very opposite, and I think it's important for you to get more exposure on the business side if you want to be a co-founder. I tried a lot, in fact, to take a sales job with Bloomberg, and they didn't recruit me in that. I was sort of stuck in technology, and also to have a business side person who understands the business. So I would always say, you always look at customer development, what is the customer use case, and also never have to take too long to hit the market. The lean startup principle is, maybe there is no technology also. You start hitting the market and try to see that problem is really, what is the problem you're trying to solve even without technology. Look at the concept of MVP, right? That was developed. In fact, that MVP word came from the lean startup book, which is one of the books that I referred here, right? Minimum viable product, right? If you look at these principles, you can probably cut down a lot of engineering, but I don't know, I'm sure there are some technologies which you can't cut down too much. But, it's a difficult play, and fortunately, I think, to solve this difficulty, a lot of I think accelerators have come up, right? Be it Axelog, a lot of these people, in fact, they look at tech companies, they know that these kind of problems exist. If they really believe in you, they are willing to give incubation space, they are willing to invest a certain amount, so that you can come to a stage where you can hit the market and figure out whether it works or not. So,
the question is more of after the MVP. Now, there are a lot of prototyping platforms that are available. Lucky enough, when we finished our graduation, prototyping platforms were not so extensive as what it is today. Today, everyone talks about Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, which can, just your MVPs is for sure something you can quickly build. But the question is, okay, I have my MVP in hand. Now, what do I do next is where most of the people are wondering about. Which is the first door we even knock? Because we know MVP is not going to be the final product at the end.
It's the process, as I said, if you go by the 4-step epiphany also, right? There's one more book called the Startup Owners Manual, which is a newer version of the same book, which is slightly easier to read. They talk about all this too, where you can be stuck, right? You have an MVP, right? From an MVP, now is there enough data to prove that NPC is working, right? Can that data extrapolate? What is the market size? What is the person who's investing looking for, right? Unless the MVP really has to take it to the next level, right? It has to prove that, this is possible, I have data to prove it, and you have to go and talk to the right people. And it's extremely important for business people to make any business work, right? At the end of the day, you are not doing a product, you're doing a company, right? And so what you have to really, and company is about building people, convincing investors, convincing customers. See, tech is one part of it, right? So it's really important to have those hustlers, people with the right kind of skills. And I'll give you one of my own example is, see, I understood some of the areas where I was weak. One is, I was coming from US to India after 8 years. My connections in US were stronger, but in India, I had to rebuild the connections. So one of the things I did was, connections is where I lacked. I started having advisors who are very good connections. I gave them stake, right? It was like a blind move, but trust me, it actually worked. When I gave them stake, they are grateful and they have to deliver something. I told them, I'm giving you because I lack connections, give me connections. Right. Next, I sort of have an advisor who actually was well connected with with investors. Right. So he started getting me investor meetings. Right. He would go and tell that, hey, and obviously he came because he believed in me. He also happens to be somebody who's also my colleagues, like 10 years senior. So he is, at least because of it, he spent time with me. He is somebody from my same college. Then he sort of liked me. Then he understood me. Then he sort of pitched me to certain people. Then I went. So you need to sort of figure it out, right? Where do you lack? If you are unable to get those meetings, maybe you need to get those advisors, right? It's okay to, at the end of the day, don't hold on too much to your stock. It's okay to give off stocks to somebody with a vesting schedule, with a certain objective, and what you're not able to meet, there should be somebody else who can do it. And remember, you're building a company, not a product.
Yeah, hi. can you tell us two most difficult challenges you faced as an entrepreneur, and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge I have spoken in my last talk also is that I think I was little, I think the investment itself in India, the way it works, right, I was not mature enough even at this time, right, and now I'm, obviously maturity always comes when you hit a difficult time. I think the most difficult was, I think, a couple of months back when we had a problem with the investor sort of going back after certain promises. I think it almost felt like we had to shut down, right? I actually took personal loans to pay salary, a lot of things I did. I think I was sort of not, I guess now I know I was probably not as well prepared for that. So somehow, but at the end of the day, I think the right decision was that I didn't quit. I decided to stay, no matter how hard it was. I'm so glad that I stayed on, because also the thing was, the reality was a lot more positive than what I was realizing. Because what happens when things are going bad, human mind is such that we only start looking at negative. So I really got into a spiral when I was not looking at the positive side of the whole thing. Somehow eventually I came out. I think otherwise, I think some of the most difficulties for me, myself, I think the biggest difficulty a lot of people do face, which I did solve, is to get the right people, right? I think more than getting right investors, I would say convincing the right people to join you and work you is a bigger thing. Because investor puts the money one time, once you talk to them, you're dealing with those right set of people every day, right? I think convincing right people to come is the biggest challenge I have always faced. I think I've been generally successful getting those, and I think I do believe that the more you grow, you need to keep getting those. So you need to be a salesman. You need to keep selling your company, your idea, your vision, and get those right people. And also, I think when a lot of smart people come in, how to make sure they all can sit and maybe there are egos, maybe there are things. How can you coordinate? You need to orchestrate this whole thing and make sure they all can work as a team. There is a lot of bonding. I think it's a lot more human than people realize. It's not just tech, or the biggest reason they say, right, whatever failure is in 95% or whatever, the number one biggest reason for any startup to fail is because of people problem, not because of the product or a market fit, right? People leave each other and go away, right? It is human, right? You look at the word company, right? I always say that company is when people get together, it becomes company. You always remember company is people, right? Country is not land, country is citizens, company is people and employees and co-workers, right? So it's important to build a team. I think that's always the biggest challenge, to make sure they stay together and deliver.
Thank you.
Hi Shesh, hello everyone. My name is Sri Harsha. I've come here for finding a co-founder. I think before asking the question, just let me add to your question. So you said you have a challenge of you're an engineer, you're a technology side of it, and you're trying hard to sort of put together things, thinking ahead. Also, the hill is greener on the other side. That's what they say. So I have a business background. I come from business background myself. I been a technology team. I work for an incubator myself, helping other aspiring entrepreneurs. So not in the technology side, but in the other than technology side. So now I'm looking ahead into technology side. So there are always people where we need to find. That's why we have a lead. So my question here, Shesh, thanks a lot for your capsule, of 10 points which you put together. The one I liked was look long term. That's what you said, right? When you said long term, the question is sort of in terms of when you look at the enterprise, the old school and the sort of when you said it's Silicon Valley type of business, it's a blend is what it is in India. I'm not sure if you refer to profitability or a marketplace scenario which we're looking at. How much of the focus from the ecosystem standpoint as well as from the entrepreneur's standpoint is on profitability, that is break even, is the old school, and capturing the market scenario. So we're expanding the market and going boom and all of that, right? So I want, the question is to you, you in terms of an angel rather than an entrepreneur. So I expect an honest answer from you.
So I think Sri Harsha, I think few things I understand is, one is you come from the business background, right? And then your question is about, in terms of, one is obviously, there are companies which focus on capturing the market. There are companies which focus on profitability, right? What is the right timing for profitability? I think this is a very complex, actually, question in some sense, right? It is. I think it needs a lot of instinct and sense to really understand how to do this, right? It depends a lot on your funding environment, your market environment, It's a very, very relative thing, right? Let's say 20 years back, I was trying to build a company and trying to capture market, right? Nobody would even trust, right? So today, let's say you're in Silicon Valley, so you need to understand where your investors are and how they are backing it, right? And you need to know your game very well, right? Like Facebook never made any money, I think, for first 10 years, but his game was always about, he knew that he has investors who believe in his metrics. His metrics was always strong. I think I have read a book about Facebook also, right? His metrics was always strong and he knew people were excited about it, right? And he for sure knew that they are not going to go away, right? The number of people, the amount of engagement, like some of the metrics I say, right? Number of time users would use it per day or per week, number of drop-off rate, any metrics you take was extremely amazing. And you knew it. And you knew that I don't want to care about short-term profit because my metrics are strong. And I think he followed the lean principle. He was iterating through different things, different things, and things were always going. Metrics were strong, and even 10 years people would fund it, right? So that's how you need to know the game, right? There can be scenarios. I think unfortunately there are scenarios sometimes, especially in India market, sometimes becomes too rosy. Like too many investors have come and they are throwing money, right? And for some global reason unrelated to you, they may stop giving money, right? So I think unfortunately in India, I don't know if India is in a stage where you can keep building a company. For example, Hype. See, he can do it because, the reputation, his father is very famous, right? He probably is playing that, that game where he knows that, at the end of the day, I can keep building and make money later and investors will support me, right? So the awareness of the market scenario and investment scenario is very, very important. For example, I never, we don't play that game. Every unit we do is profitable. For me, if I was playing a market, capturing a game and looking at 5 years later, I don't think it would have worked in this business. Also, I think it depends on the kind of business. In real estate, I think every property should make money, right? Every unit should make money. So again, now, like for example, Ola is not making money, but maybe it's smart because investors will support it, right? So that awareness, and it's a very relative question. What is the market you are in? What is the country you are in? What is the investment scenario so you have to look at all that and make your own judgment.
Sure. To simplify the question since it's complex, is it not a paradox that entrepreneurs should look at long term, and that's what they tend to look at, or at least intend to look at? From investor standpoint, say suppose you're an angel, so angels tend to be short term. Is that true? Can I put it like that?
See, every investor is different. If your question is, it's a paradox, right? I think quite often, India, as of today, I would say, is more people look more short term from investors' perspective, right? People are looking like, and that's what people have got used to. Especially I go to real estate, hey, I put this money, I made 3x. It has been true in the last 10, 15 years, right? I made 3x in 2 years, right? Whatever I made, trust me, people have made many more x than me, right? So the mindset is very different in India. Whereas Silicon Valley, right, like Facebook itself proves, right, be it Facebook or Amazon, a lot of these people have looked long term. And in fact, they are now, Facebook, I guess, is worth like $450 billion, right? So I think that is, the paradox is that, that's why you need to have those kind of investors. At the end of the day, it depends on who's backing it. If the backing person looks at long term, at the end of the day, he's not looking at today's profit, but he'll still look at your metrics. It's not like he will take a leave for 10 years and come back. He'll be still looking at your metrics. What is his game, right? He's like saying, next year, this is the user base, this is what. So as long as you know what is the game you're playing, you're progressing, you keep supporting. So, and also, you should see whether you are looking at long term or short term, and you get the right kind of investors, right? Don't get excited about the money. I think, I always say that, getting an investor is like getting married, right? It's not about the money part, right? Is there a compatibility? It's like a match. They're like a partner whom you're dealing with for a long time. Do they, believe in your vision? Are they willing to support? I think there are other ways of doing things also, right? There are companies which are built to sell. I'm not saying, see, that is not my game. I don't know that. I want to build a great company in the long term. That's the game I'm playing. But there are people who play that game where they're like, boss, I'm going to build it disposable guys. Or, that's their game, right? And that's the game, and that's the investor also knows that's the game, and, everybody should be clear in what's the game you're playing.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, hi. This is Nayaz here. So I run an incubator, Jain University's Incubation Center. We are recognized by the Government of India. Talking to Vijeta as well for a possible collaboration with PI. So my question is, everybody here would have seen this. There's a lot of misconception or kind of thing for the mentoring. So people really don't understand mentoring concepts here in India is what I experienced. So, as you yourself mentioned, that if we go through some of those books, and a lot of those books answer the questions, what we can ask you, kind of thing. So, and probably most of us are so much focused on the technology and solving technology problems. We are probably very less percentage of people look at these books. So that could be one of the reasons. So my question to you is, so how do you see this, and here at Beehive, how do you address this mentoring part of it? And so what do you see as a whole, as a country, we should do to address this mentoring problem? And is the way to look outside is the only way, or yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the way I understand the question is, obviously, I think one of the things I do tell is, I have told in this talk is that there are these books which have a lot of this advice, but you sort of see that especially in India, most people are tech focused and they're not so likely to be reading these books, right? So that's one. And the other side of it is that, in terms of mentoring, how do I see mentoring to pan out, right? I think regardless of whether the books are there, etc., I think mentoring is a very important thing, and I think one of the lessons I learned when my first company failed, right, was that I need to have mentors. At the end of the day, I always have mentors. I have, regardless of these books, I still have mentors. There are mentors, but it's important to identify the mentors, right? Mentors are people you have to understand their background and what they have done, and choose mentors in areas where I need to learn further. Right, so I think that's important. I would always say that every person should physically, obviously all these books or a video and all that is very disconnected. We are humans, we need to talk to real people. I think that's one of the reasons why people like Chris Gopal, we invite here, they come and give a talk, because you need to see people for real. I think that's some of the gaps that incubators are filling in. So I think, and also I think mentoring, whatever it is, India obviously is not Silicon Valley. I think the level of maturity or the amount of experience that mentors in India bring in, as of today, it does not match with Silicon Valley, but doesn't mean that we all go away, right? So it's our duty to build that, right? I think that's why I always say that people who are successful, I think have to give back, have to come and give a talk, or maybe this Q&A. I'm talking something from my experience, right? But I think when these kind of activities happen, I have no doubt that in a matter of 10 years or 15 years, India, the level of maturity of the ecosystem itself is not very mature. I think the maturity of the ecosystem will also go up. So it's important to understand that it's important and keep working. And I think accelerators, incubators like you should keep getting successful people, and they should talk about things from their experience. And quite often I see sometimes people are just repeating things somewhere else, right? I always try to talk from my experience, right? If I try to talk about how to raise $100 million, I have never done it, right? So I think I talk about things. So I think get those right people, set of people, and also understand whether incubator is a early stage company. I'm trying to crack, say, for example, if I'm trying to build a B2B business, right? I think cracking B2B sales is very hard. Maybe the mentors are people who know how to do B2B sales, right? B2B is about a lot of relationship building. It probably needs money. We need to probably take people out on a trip, or I don't know. But people who have done B2B sales tell me these things, right? Then I know, oh, this is how it is done, right? So it's important to connect to the startups. What is the area where they lack? That's where you need to get that mentor, and they should look up to the mentor, respect and follow them.
Hi, my name is Sandeep. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I've been more on the corporate side, so running innovation in large companies. I'm in Canada, so that's where I'm based right now in Toronto. I was just curious. So I just came back to Bangalore after a long time. I see a lot of energy in this. Where do you see the energy on the sort of corporate startup partnership space? I'm seeing a lot there in Canada. So there's a lot of focus right now. Pretty much every large company is either investing, building a place like this, or so there's a lot of energy. I've sort of been a part of it myself. I'm just curious to know what it is and where do you see that going?
Again, I'll talk about. I think the question really is, you come from a corporate background, and I guess you're in Canada, and you've seen that a lot of corporate startup collaboration happening out there, and you just come back to Bangalore. And how do we see it spanning out in Bangalore or in India, right? So from my experience, of course, I've been back from last 3 years. what I see is that, of course the world is a global village now, right? So what's happening in Canada, in fact, one of our biggest customers is a Canadian company, right? So I think the culture, what's happening worldwide, the trends are repeating everywhere. If it's happening in Canada, it's happening in Silicon Valley, most of those companies have branches here, the same things are also happening here. So I think it's a global trend where people have understood that, I think people have been like surprised, something like Facebook came from became a $450 billion company, right? So I think people have seen that, WhatsApp came from nowhere and got bought for like $19 billion. Instagram, like 3 people built it, got built for, sold for $1 billion. I think people have seen it and understood and are curious, the old school business also, corporates, that what's happening. So and they also, I think also the people are changing. The millennials are very, very individualistic focused, right? And I think that access to data is very different now, right? When I was young, I know whatever people had to tell us to be, I had to believe. Now I can look into Wikipedia and tell whether what is wrong, what is right. I think the trend is also changing, and I think for corporates also are figuring out that they need to keep reinventing themselves, right? Otherwise they see that others are getting ahead. So I think it is true everywhere that the ones who are to stay ahead of the game are corporates which have stayed the longest. Look at them, they actually keep reinventing. I think it is now people do want to collaborate. And also I think another very interesting thing about India, I think is not true about most countries, is that the head of the country, the political head of the country is like really encouraging startups like no other country, right? I think that has, trust me, I think frankly, I think before the Modi Stand Up India, I think a lot of people were within family also not really understanding what I'm doing about startups. I think now the respect that a startup commands completely changed. And also I think there is, a lot of positive things are also happening, and I think things are good, and most companies, especially ones with global exposure, are definitely encouraging startups and trying to collaborate.
Anyway, thanks for sharing quite a lot of your insights. I'm curious to know one particular thing here. See, if there are 1,000 ways of killing you, I may say you in the entrepreneurship, either you could get killed by the first attempt, or even the 1,000th attempt might not kill you. So what happens is here, it's the spirit is very important. Now I'm curious to know what is that spirit that was in you that kept you floating.
It's an interesting question, right? So I think what you're asking is, obviously, there are many ways, a person or a startup can get killed, right? And then what kept me going, right? Despite, all odds are against you, what keeps you going, right? I think that's the characteristic of an entrepreneur, which hopefully I have some of it, is that I think I was very, I had a corporate job, I was in US to say, right, I was living in Manhattan, I had a BMW convertible, and I think I had everything I could have dreamt of when I was in college in terms of materiality, right? And for me personally, I was still not satisfied. I was still feeling bored to go to work, and I was feeling like every day, I think one of the things I think Steve Jobs also inspired. That's a quote I think we have put up in Indranagar as well, right? If you are every day feeling bored to go to something, a job, it means that you need to change, right? That's what I realized, right? It doesn't matter, at the end of the day, if I'm sitting 8 hours, 9 hours and I'm cribbing about it, I'm not happy. Doesn't matter what I have. So I think one is, I think at the larger context, I knew I've already got a lot of those things, what I could get in corporate life, and I could see my peers who are 10 years ahead of me, and I was thinking, is this where I want to be? Right? And I felt like, in 10 years, this is not what I want to be, right? I was very, very clear about what I was doing, and I knew about, in fact, because I read a lot of these books, etc. also, I knew it is tough, but I knew that at least at the end of it, there is learning. And I saw the conviction was there that, there is something out there. Okay, startup might fail, but I've learned, I've grown. And trust me, I think the amount I've grown in 2.5 years is probably much more than in the 10 years of corporate life in terms of what I've learned, the difficulties I've faced. So at the end of the day, I'm always looking at those things which are definitely going to be there, right? And that's what keeps me going. And the impact, and I think the satisfaction, the impact, I think, as you say, I can see, tomorrow maybe, even if it shuts down tomorrow, I see that it made difference to a lot of people, right? My goal was to make a productive environment. I was facing difficulties with internet, we built a technology called BuzzNet. So when I keep seeing people who are actually delivering something much more than probably they wouldn't have done without this, and the difference it's making, I think, I do believe we are better employers, even for housekeeping, security, I think the way we focus on ensuring the salaries come on time. So a lot of these things I feel that I'm doing in this world, at least me being there is making a difference, right? And that's what drives me. question from Vaibhav is that obviously I think building a good place, etc., as a workspace is something which as a core Kingspace would look at. But why from day one, and community building has been very important for Beehive, right? It's very Beehive-centric question. So I think for me, one of the things I would say is that vibrant work environment has always sort of made me more. I sort of took it personally by how I feel. Right? I always have loved to go to a vibrant work environment than a boring workplace. And luckily, I've been in many different environments. I worked for initially currently I was in Infosys in Bangalore, was a vibrant environment, a lot of youngsters. I changed a couple of. In fact, I think most workplaces in India are quite interesting and vibrant. Then I've been in smaller towns in US also before going to New York. Sometimes it can be very boring. And at the end of the day, I was in Manhattan, which is probably one of the most vibrant place. So I think energy personally I could draw, right? Just by getting into Manhattan, just like getting out of the road, walking would charge me. And I feel that in community makes a difference, right? And I could see that maybe differently or different. Personally for me, being in a vibrant environment makes me more charged, makes me like perform. And also it's the difference between work and home. Personally, again, I am somebody who at home is not the best performer. I'll feel like, hey, maybe I should just take a nap, right? I think my mind works very differently when I'm at home. But at the same time, when I'm at work, the whole energy, the way things work, I don't even realize how the whole day passes. I think that energy, I think that's the reason why people come to work, and I feel that it's important, no matter what work from home, etc. is there. I think people should drive, get something from the community, see other people doing. You take a break, at a home you take a coffee break, you're alone, right? You take a coffee break, you probably talk to somebody else. You probably dress up well because you're coming to office, right? I think all these things make a difference, right? And it's the same way where, let's say same restaurant food becomes, let's say social. You order the same social food and eat at home, or you go to social, you go to Koramangala social, right? What is it about Koramangala social, right? Is it the food? It is the vibe. I think vibe is very, very important, and that's what builds the experience. And I think the importance of community. I think we are human, right? Humans and a couple of like maybe the bulls, etc. are community oriented, right? And we, I think we are not built to be like alone. Humans want community and thrive well in community. And I learned it luckily. And in fact, I also used to be a member of eWorld, which used to be a New York-based startup at that time. And I saw also the value of community there. So I knew that community is very important to help people, feel happy to come to the company and give energy to to do things better. Good.
Any other questions? We're open for networking. Okay, the last question for the evening, please.
Hi, this is Venkatesh. Building a team in a startup is very difficult. So what's your insights on it? What is the biggest problem?
Yeah, sir, I think you hit it on it, right? Building a company is about building a team, building people, right? So company is about people more than the idea also. In fact, one of the things that Paul Graham, I think I would always recommend read all these things, right? He always tells how he selects companies in Y Combinator. It's the most successful incubator. That's the one who set the trend, right? So when he selects companies, right, he says that his first thing is not the idea. He likes the team. He actually, selects them, do the incubation program. There are instances when he has actually liked the team, not the idea. And he has told them, I'll take your team, I like your team, but let's rework and figure out a different idea. Because at the end of the day, it is a team which can stick together and you can actually pivot to an extent where you might have done something completely different, right? There are many examples, I would say, like Slack is a great example. Slack initially used to be a company that was into video games. They were trying to do video games. The Slack, whatever chat they developed was an internal tool. And the video game thing failed, but the team was great, right? They were obviously have built a great product internally, and that itself became big. I think even Microsoft originally what they meant to was very different from what they are today, right? So the team is the most important thing about building a company. Which actually repeating the Paul Graham, but I personally that's what I learned from him, and I think I've implemented it in work, right? And now the question is, how do you build a team? I think it's again a people thing, right? You need to make sure that you are looking long term, you are giving enough stake to others, you make people like you, right? It's sort of like a leadership, right? People should believe in you. You should, if you are not today there, maybe you should get there someday. Where if you want to be a founder, you have to be a person with certain abilities where people are willing to believe and come with you, right? At the end of it's about that leadership, right? And if you are who doesn't have that, maybe you have to find the other person who has that leadership. right? So it's important to have those qualities, right? For example, let's say I go for trekking, when I was in 20s, I used to find 10 people to come with me in no time, right? I would convince people, right? But not everybody can do it, right? So those things are very important, right? And work on team building, people skills. As you said, like it's not about reading textbook. There's a book called Social Style which has helped me a lot. There's so many general books about people, which is very important. So it's a people skills is a key, which if everybody who wants to be a founder should.
Thank you so much, Shesh. That was very insightful. Appreciate that you have really taken the time and the heart to write down everything, share everything, and I think we are all very grateful for that. So guys, one more thing that I'd like to say is that remember that you're in BI, you're in a co-working space. We have our colleagues here. We would love to show you around this place as well. We also have some refreshments that is kept aside for you. Okay? And free to network, free to talk to each other, get to know each other, and that's what really matters. We also have a lot of events that is coming up. We also have something called Artificial Intelligence, a workshop happening tomorrow. I would really request you guys to be part of our meetup, be part of our community, because this is how we believe that we should give back to, God's grace. Life is good. We work all we all work very hard, but at the same time, we need the support. We need to talk to people, and that's what Shesh has been emphasizing. To build teams, you need to network, you need to meet good people, and that's what we have do. So thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for coming across on a Friday evening. Please have a great time, and all the best to each and every one of you. Reach out to us for any assistance and support that you guys need. All right? Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.